Hey, I'm Stacey Jones. I'm your MC for today. Really excited to be welcoming Michael Davis to the stage today. Him and his team stand by signs saying, wait for it, animals deserve to be abused. Prove me wrong. What follows is a lot of troubled looks, understandably.
What are you doing saying that?
Welcoming to the stage, Michael Davis.
Oh, man. This is so awesome. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I never thought I would have this opportunity to speak like this. But anyways, yeah, I'm Michael. I'm 25 years old, and this is my first time doing public speaking since my high school speech that I had to say in Japanese. So bear with me. Any loss of eye contact or a word expression from my face doesn't mean that you guys are ugly. That's more of my problem than anyone else's. So if you decide to scroll Instagram or just walk off, I understand. To be honest, I'm really surprised that you guys took your time out of a vegan festival to hear a talk on why animals deserve to be abused. You don't seem very vegan lot to me, to be honest. I was expecting a bit more rainbow here, more yoga pants, etc. But that's great. You'll really enjoy a talk on why our society believes that animals deserve to be abused. And I'm here to prove to you why. Horrible things happen mainly to cows, pigs, chickens, and little baby lambs in our country for the sake of pleasing one's palate. Now, I'm sure I will have at least one person contest my statement that animals deserve to be abused by saying that we can still eat them without abusing them. Let me take a second to rephrase my statement then. But keep in mind that more than 90% of animals are factory farmed. So this is for the extreme minority of cases. Now again, to reframe, our society believes that animals deserve to be slaughtered. Even then, I would have an objection saying that they don't deserve to be slaughtered, but it's just what happens. Anyone with a basic understanding on how systemic oppression works will know that this is not the case. An animal has no choice of leaving the slaughterhouse. And to top it off, if you are courageous enough to decide to liberate one of these animals, you will not be met with praise for your efforts of saving an innocent animal from unnecessary death. Instead, you will be sent to jail for trespass and stealing of what farmers would call their property. This happened in a very real case in Canada, where activists broke into a factory farm holding pigs to expose the horrendous cruelty that they were facing. They were sentenced to 30 days in jail, while the company's owners, who were committing legal acts of animal cruelty, had no repercussions whatsoever. You would think that this would only happen in a society that is based around cruelty to animals, not a society that is based on love and compassion towards them. But what we say and what we do are two completely different things. Me coming out and boldly saying animals deserve to be abused is just being honest about the fact of what these industries are doing to them. Normally in my outreach, I would talk about what the standard practices of those industries are in animal agriculture. But this is a family event, and I respect that. I wouldn't want to put anyone off the amazing vegan food that we have here today on offer, myself included. However, let's consider this fact. People believe that we are designed to eat animals and their products, but for some reason, explaining or showing what happens to animals to young children, people would describe this as indecent and traumatizing. I don't think anyone would say the same for how we get fruits and vegetables on our plates. Instead of those horrible things that happen to animals, let me describe to you what kind of reactions I get as someone who stands around town with a sign that says animals deserve to be abused. First of all, I get those really dirty looks from people. They look at me, look at my sign, look at me again, probably thinking that this guy's not a vegan, come on. And then they're just shocked and speechless, and they just think to themselves, what a disgusting person who would come out and say that, right? One of my favorite reactions was when these kids came up to me shocked and speechless just looking at my sign, and I asked them why they didn't agree with me. And the guy literally, in all seriousness, pulls out his phone, starts dialing a healthline number, and asks me, do you need help? You have mental health issues. I quickly cleared things up with them, and they understood my point and reflected on the products that they consume that contribute to animal cruelty. But that interaction begs the question, why is it that someone being honest about their contributions to an animal abusing industry gets referred to as mentally ill. The best part about this activism personally is the fact that I get to relive my insecure, masculine, meat-eating identity, and I get to say things like, but we're at the top of the food chain. KFC tastes too good to care about animals. And my favorite thing to say, especially to people with smaller builds than me, is, what about protein though? Me playing devil's advocate leads to the most beautiful things I hear people say in the defense of animals. I've pulled some real quotes from my conversations to share with you, which you will see at the end of this talk on that screen. The first interaction comes from a woman who replied, "No," when I told her that I'm better than a pig and a chicken, so I can pay for it to be killed. She told me, asking if animals deserve to be abused is like asking if we deserve to be abused. It makes me think about what I consume, but I don't know if I would go vegan though. I asked her, what do you think you can do if you no longer want to support animal abuse? To which she replied very simply, don't buy animal products. Quite ironic. This came from a group of kids who are really keen to troll a vegan. When I asked them their opinion on the sign, most of them said things like, I like chicken nuggets though, as long as it tastes nice, I don't really care. And that's when the youngest of the group stepped in and he empathized and he said, imagine if you were that chicken. At the end of the conversation, they all decided that they didn't want to eat animals, so I suggested that they get some burgers from Wise Boys, a vegan burger place that I'll be working at myself very soon. Remember that these quotes come from people with the most honest intentions of defending animals. However, at that point in time, their actions did not align with those values that they told me that they have. All of these quotes embody empathy, and empathy is one of the greatest gifts that we humans have, which lets us seriously consider decisions of ethics. The fact that we can rationalize and relate with the kind of suffering that someone else completely different to us experiences is what I believe to be the greatest gift of our humanity, because compassion and love always wins. Not in some wishy-washy Disney kind of way though, but from a serious biological perspective, in terms of the longest living and most successful species of animals, they are mostly herbivores. This means that very fortunately, cruelty to others is a niche that does not reward well at all. I'd like to share with you the story of how me, the literal opposite of a vegan, became an animal rights activist. While I was working at the Sugar Club in Sky City as a chef, on my downtime at home, I would scroll Facebook through sponsors, and a rough-looking, bold Aussie fella would always pop up in my feed. And I would see the word vegan in the title or description and swipe away as fast as possible. A few months later, I read a book called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. It teaches you about logical fallacies. At the end of the book, the author encourages you to test yourself to see what kind of logical fallacies that you have yourself. The next time that bold Aussie guy showed up in my feed, I got excited. Ha! Veganism! This one will be so easy to debunk. Let's get at it. I watched the video of the debate, and the adrenaline that I previously had in my eagerness of debunking what I thought to be a feeble ideology dropped. Every single answer they gave in rebuttal to Joey, the animal rights activist, corresponded with each logical fallacy that I learned from the book. We eat animals because other animals do, a false equivalency. We eat meat because it's natural, an appeal to nature fallacy. My friend went vegan and got really sick, an anecdotal fallacy. I watched a few of these videos and just figured out he only talks to uneducated people to make himself look good, surely. So I poured through hundreds of his and Earthling Ed's videos in order to search for one thing. I needed one, just one, simple, decent excuse to eat fried chicken again. And I could not find anything. The only way out for me was to throw away my identity as someone who practices logical consistency and is against animal abuse. I ended up here because those things are far more valuable to me than giving them up. And when I watched the documentary Dominion, talking about the standard practices of these industries, I saw innocent victims that needed help. Previously, I had no idea of the concept of ethical veganism. I thought that for some weird reason, people didn't like the taste of animal products. So I usually thought to myself, more for me then, I guess. Now, after coming out on the other side of that, I decided to become the person that I wish I could have talked to about animal ethics. I came up with the idea for the sign because I saw how the other activists were doing it, and honestly, it just didn't sit well with me. Debate signs such as veganism is a moral obligation, and if you're not vegan, you're an animal abuser. Those were the kinds of conversations that I didn't want to have. So one day I thought to myself, instead of telling people that animals shouldn't be abused or slaughtered, why not just do the opposite? Let's have some fun. My whole philosophy revolves around what I call the victim's perspective. A lot of people ask me things like, what about drinking milk? What about eating eggs? What about? They all want to know my opinion. And honestly, it doesn't matter at all. Now, as an animal rights activist, you'd probably think all I want to talk about is my own opinion. But instead, I propose this. Instead of saying we shouldn't eat this or that, let's look at the larger scale of what purchasing eggs or dairy products means. So this is actually a fun fact that I can tell you that is family friendly about those industries. So when the egg-laying hens and dairy cows, when their production declines, they actually go to little retirement villages where they have amazing medical care, great friendly staff, and they have nice little gardens to walk around. We all know that this is not the case, and the most logical assumption of what actually happens is true. Most people won't look into this personally because they already know that they would be faced with horrendous cruelty upon looking into these industries. But that realization in itself should be enough evidence to boycott those industries. But if we were to talk about it, at the end of this explanation, if you were looking at this from their point of view, if you were truly the animal in their position, would you be happy for someone to personally pay for the same things to be done to you? The honest answer of this requires one thing: a clean view from the victim's perspective. All of the animal rights content you will see will be a vegan arguing with a non-vegan, but I'd like to offer you guys a fresh perspective. I go undercover as an honest meat eater and talk to Jayden, a guy with a massive heart for animals who called me out for my sign when I proposed to him that animals deserve to be abused. That conversation was about 1 year into me developing my technique of getting people to understand a new perspective on animal rights. But before this, I must admit, I was extremely naive. I honestly thought, because I went through the same thing, that if I just spew all the disgusting facts about these industries, about the numbers, about the procedures, people would exercise their logic and compassion and immediately decide to stop supporting these industries and instead live a vegan lifestyle, just like a fairy tale. I never thought to myself that convincing people to stop paying for the worst imaginable animal suffering on the planet would be the hardest thing that you could do, which you wouldn't get paid for or even positively recognized for. Some would look at my efforts and say, of course, you're being confrontational. You're making people uncomfortable. Why not just make people see and taste how amazing vegan food is, and they will make the switch themselves. So as a chef, I knew I'd be able to captivate my friends and family with the amazing flavor profiles that I could extract from plants, and that would work. I made an amazing feast for my parents and then talked to them about the issues of factory farming, and I really slept well that night, feeling like I made a difference. The next night, I got home looking for my parents. But what captured my attention was the box of pizza sitting in the middle of the counter. The cheapest pizza you could find, made of the cheapest products. That meant the cheapest meats, the cheapest cheese, so on and so forth. The only labels plastered on those boxes are cheap and tasty, but what they forget to mention is the label of cruelty, the label of made from animal suffering. If I can't get them to empathize with these animals, surely at least they care about the environment. It's the future of my kids, their grandchildren at stake, no pun intended. The next day I mentioned the environmental impacts, and they just remarked that they agree that people should be more aware. Now, I'm not taking a stab at my parents because vegans don't stab, They are lovely and they are the sole reason why I have the privilege to talk about this. But the thing is, none of these things seem to work. But everyone from their respective niche, ethics, health, environment, all say the same thing. We all should just focus on sharing recipes with people from foodies, or environmentalists saying that we should just focus on the environmental impacts as people are so much more receptive to that message. And finally, activists like myself that say either outreach or protests are all the one thing we need to focus on. I'm not here to say that any of those instances are incorrect. In fact, they are great entries into a plant-based diet, but the concept that we are basing this theory on is part of an incomplete results-based analysis on top of our own biased experience of going vegan. I too experienced this train of thought when contemplating the most effective way for other people to live a cruelty-free lifestyle. But here is the crux of it. No one thing will make anyone vegan. If you are vegan yourself, think about the last thing you did, saw, heard, or thought before you went vegan. When you tell others about this experience, you are likely to recall upon it in a way that suggests that this is the thing that made me vegan. Our biological evolution has developed in a way to keep our brains in a state of cognitive ease, not spending too much time thinking about non-survival topics through the use of heuristic biases which result in logical fallacies. Propose this question to yourself. What if you were to take that moment that you said made you go vegan, that experience, and apply it 5 years into the past, even 10 years? Do you honestly think that this same experience, experienced in the same way, would have made you go vegan in that instance? And I would predict that's not the case. Circling back to our state of cognitive ease, it's so much easier to represent the moment before going vegan as the sole cause of going vegan. Acknowledging all the conscious decisions and interactions, along with all the uncontrollable effects on our subconscious from our surroundings to communicate why we chose to do something, is extremely hard and inefficient to do, like this sentence that I just told you. If you think of a similar question, such as, what made you the person you are today? You are more inclined to focus on a single or set of impactful experiences rather than focus on all the potential factors that are involved. Let's go to a simpler analogy though. Essentially, we are puzzle solving to create a world where animal suffering is reduced as far as practicable and possible. When trying to solve a puzzle such as a picture puzzle, there can be thousands of individual pieces. Not any single piece is worth more than another in this instance. However, building a chain of pieces, it lets you build momentum. This builds a better perspective as to how to solve the puzzle and leads to the point where the last pieces of the puzzle seem to be the easiest and most satisfying to place. At the end of the puzzle becomes a clear image of ethical veganism for the sole purpose of reducing animal suffering, whereas before it was a much incoherent assembly of the puzzle, thinking that veganism is either about health or the environment, but understanding instead that these are all interconnected features of that ethical principle. This is where our intuition comes to place a higher value on specific interactions, even though in the grand scheme of things, all of these interactions are required and they all have a place where they belong. The last pieces of the puzzle for you going vegan had the most significant impact and completely overshadow the equally important interactions, and I have the same bias as well. I want to talk about outreach specifically, as I think it is extremely underrated and attendance rates are far lower than any other form of activism. I do not blame vegans or activists for this, but more broadly, I place blame on the expectation of two things: that we attribute going vegan as a result of a singular experience, and we think that outreach is one of those experiences. Depending on how long the conversation is, they can either be a single piece or a chain of pieces, and whether that chain of pieces falls at the start or the end of the conversation is all up to the person that you're talking to, not the outreacher. However, myself and other new outreachers I see expect that after giving these pieces of the puzzle to those people, they will be able to solve the problem. And that's just not the case at all. All interactions have equal importance and are all required for all of us to make a better world together. I encourage you to see which pieces of the puzzle you enjoy giving others and focus on them consistently without giving other pieces of the puzzle a bad name. We vegans all have the same goal of animal liberation, and hopefully we understand the expectations of these interactions, so let's build each other up instead of picking apart on one another's progress with this very difficult puzzle we have. I'm going to show another video because I could not possibly talk more. So I thought I'd share my favorite reels from Instagram and also a video of a conversation I had with 2 teenage girls who, as a result of my outreach style, did a lot more talking to me on the ethics of veganism. If you were watching this conversation without context, you would have definitely thought that they were the vegan ones and not me. But to close out my talk, I'd like to share a reflection. I asked someone once if they thought that humans have an intrinsic set of rights that we deserve. He said it depends, actually. He said it depends on whether or not those people have done a bad thing. And so what I asked him is, what do you think these animals have done to deserve the horrible things that we do to them? And his answer was, absolutely nothing. 2 girls agree. Animals.
Why do you think
Yeah.
No.
Wait, what?
Agree?
And hold on.
Why do you think that?
Why don't you think animals deserve to be abused?
That's just like us.
Whoa.
We killed you and then we fed you to someone else. Would you like that?
I mean, no.
Yeah, exactly. That's how the animals feel.
Why are you telling me that?
Because it's real. Like they're animals. They killed you. And then
But-
I fed you to someone else. Then they ate you. You would not like that.
Wait, why are you girls telling me that when you girls eat animals? You guys don't think that animals deserve to be abused or something?
Yeah, no.
Why not? What is it about animals that makes you feel like they...
True.
We're not getting abused. I still want to eat chicken
Yeah,
nuggets.
really. As long as it's
You don't really
it tastes
care?
pretty nice.
Yeah.
Hey,
No,
yeah.
that's honest.
I like chicken nuggets.
Yeah. No one...
imagine if you were that chicken.
Exactly. Would you guys say that you're against animal abuse or?
Yeah.
Yeah? What would you want someone to do for you if someone was paying for you to be farmed and tortured like that, sent to a slaughterhouse?
Like someone to like scalp or something.
But who would that be? You can't speak for yourself if you're a cow. Me and everyone here would be the only one speaking for you. Everyone else on the street would be saying things like,
Chicken nuggets, and I love chicken nuggets.
you don't think animals deserve to be abused? Why not?
It's like asking if we deserve to be abused.
It's because I'm better than a pig and a chicken. No?
It makes me think about what I consume.
Yeah.
If I would go vegan.
Okay. What do you think you could do if you didn't want to support animal abuse anymore?
Don't buy any products.
Pretty simple as that, eh? Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. That was awesome. Really, really quite provocative, but I loved your approach. I thought it was really powerful.
Thank you.
I'm really interested to know, do you have people who you interview in the street that get back in touch with you?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had I'll say it in here. I had a group of 2 vegetarian girls who were basically screaming at me when they saw my sign. And all the people at my event were really worried because they thought they were like literally going to punch me in the face. They went vegan basically on the spot after being vegetarian for 10 years because they came at me in such a way that meant that their identity really consolidated with someone who was extremely against animal abuse to the point where they would see someone on the street saying that animals deserve to be abused and just scream at him, basically. That was a recent video that I had on my channel, and then yeah, they hit me up on Instagram and told me that they'd be joining the animal rights activism that was happening as well. So, yeah.
We don't have too long, but are there any questions? Because I feel like I had so many. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Michael? Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for your fresh and engaging perspective that can really change minds through persuasion and just polite conversation instead of like jamming it down people's throats. It's so beautiful, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, yeah, totally agree. And is there any other questions? Okay, yeah.
This isn't really a question either, but thank you so much for the time you obviously put. This is a massive labour of it's incredibly difficult. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Michael, where can people find you if they want to pick up the conversation?
Yeah, I mainly post my stuff on YouTube, so every day on Thursday I upload, and Instagram I always post those reels that you guys saw, which are really good to like share to your stories to get people to see that different perspective, because a lot of people wouldn't willingly watch those videos, so you can use your sphere of influence to get them to do that.
Awesome, thank you. Just one more round of applause for Michael.
Sorry, baby. No, you're right. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, dude. Oh, that was so great.